take a look at the parsha for a few minutes. I don't have my svarim with me. I only have a couple of svarim. I called my chavrusa, Rabbi Dr. the Post last night, and after we finished learning on the phone, I asked him if he'd be kind enough to scan, and what he did was he took a photograph and sent it to me of two handouts, and I then forwarded it to Shmuel, and he, I believe, distributed it to everybody. Again, we want to thank Shmuel for all the wonderful work and the time he puts in to make sure that the shir continues, that the Zoom is working, and that the handouts are given out. Before we go to the first handout, we're in Parshas Netzavim Vayelech. If you have a chumash handy, you can take out a chumash. It's not in the handout. We're in Parshas Netzavim, Perek Lamed Pasuk Aleph, and this is talking about our times. And there will be a point in time where everything that's been written into this Torah, all about the bracha, and chas v'sholom, all about the klola, will have occurred. And you're going to begin doing tshuva in your heart while you're living you're living in exile amongst all the goyim where God sent you. You're living in all the four corners of the earth, and so much has happened already to the Jewish people, and it will dawn on them to do tshuva. You're going to do tshuva. The whole parsha here is tshuva. Pasuk Gimel. V'shov Hashem lekecha shavuscha. Hashem v'rachamecha. V'shov v'kibetz mikol ha'am asher fitzcha Hashem lekecha shama. Im yeh nidachacha b'ktzei hashamayim misham mikabetz Hashem lekecha misham mikachecha v'viyacha Hashem lekecha ot asher yoshov yisach v'vishta tivcha v'yirbecha ma'mesecha. And after you do tshuva, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will gather you from all four corners of the world, and he will bring you back to Eretz Yisrael. To Eretz Asher Yoshua V'Yisach V'Vishta V'Yitivcha V'Hirbecha Me'al V'Yisecha. You will be zeicha to even greater things and greater numbers than even your forefathers. Pasuk Vav, U'mol Hashem L'Keches L'Vavcha V'Es L'Vav Zarecha. Hashem will then help you complete the tshuva. The tshuva sounds like it's not complete. People did tshuva. HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings us back to Eretz Yisrael. And now we're in Eretz Yisrael. And the Pasuk says that God will cut off the stuff. He will take out the stuffiness in our hearts. He'll do a bris milah on the heart. So we see clearly from the psukim that the Jewish people are in exile. They merit kibbutz golius, and they're back in Eretz Yisrael. And after they're back in Eretz Yisrael, we still need U'mol Hashem L'Kecha Es L'Vavcha V'Es L'Vav Zarecha. We need God to help us finish off our tshuva by cleaning up, so to speak, whatever remains in our hearts that shouldn't be there. And of course, just mentioning more famous pasuk, U'mol Hashem L'Kecha, pasuk Vav, V'Es L'Vavcha V'Es L'Vav Zarecha, Es L'Vavcha V'Es L'Vav, Aleph Lamed Vav Lamed. It's brought down the poskim. The Rashi Tevis of Es Levavcha, the Es Levav, is Rashi Tevis Elul. So in Elul, we can be Zeichet HaKadosh Baruch Hu giving us a tremendous amount of Siyata D'Shmaya to help us do tshuva. So this is what this parsha in Netzavim says. After so many Yisurim have befallen the Jewish people, they'll do tshuva in all the countries that they've been in Golus in. God will then bring you back to Eretz Yisrael from the four corners of the land, and then God will finish up the tshuva, help you finish up the tshuva process. Pasuk Gimel, you have a handout that comes from the Kotzker Rebbe's Amud HaEmes. The Kotzker Rebbe is focusing in on a Rashi. And it's a pasuk we just read, that Hashem will bring you back to Eretz Yisrael. It says, V'shov Hashem Elokecha es shavuscha. Hashem will return your exiled, v'richamecha, and he will have mercy on you. V'shov, and again, God will return. V'kibetzcha mikol ha'amim, he will gather you from all the nations. Asher fitzcha Hashem lekecha shama, where God spread you out. So we have the word v'shov twice in the pasuk. Rashi asks the question, v'shov means that God will return. The pasuk should have said v'heshiv, God will return the Jewish people. What does that have to do with God returning? So Rashi has his first pshat that when Jews are in Galus, God is in Galus, whatever that means. And when Jews come out of Galus, God comes out of Galus. Then Rashi says in the second pshat, which you have in the Amud HaEmes of the Kotzker, Rashi says, Godel Yom Kibbutz Golias Uvakushi. The day of Kibbutz Golias, the day of bringing the exiles back from the four corners of the earth, is a great day. And it's a difficult day. This is not kaviyachol. This is a hard job even for God, if we can even say such a thing. God has to pick every single Jew. We spoke about this Rashi last year in the Chumash year. The pasuk is teaching us that Kibbutz Goliath is difficult, kaviyachol, even for God, the Bakushi, because God can't sweep us all up together. We have this thing about, God's going to all of a sudden send down eagles, and we're going to go on all together on the wings of eagles and come to Eretz Yisrael. That was a vision that we now know was not a correct vision. We're watching Kibbutz Goliath, and we're watching this Rashi come true. Kibbutz Goliath is a slow process. It's one by one, family by family. There's no one, all of a sudden something's going to happen and millions of Jews are going to suddenly be in Eretz Yisrael. This was some kind of vision that Kibbutz Goliath is going to be chick-chock, some kind of miracle, and everybody's going to be here. It was an improper interpretation. It came from wherever it came from. Rashi tells us here that it's Kibbutz Goliath is a great day. It's a difficult thing to do. It's as if God has to pick up every single Jew individually and bring him to Eretz Yisrael. This is a very difficult job. It's difficult because God's not picking anybody up. Everybody's making their own decisions about Kibbutz Goliath. And God's trying to help people do Kibbutz Goliath. But in the end, people need to decide if they want to be part of Kibbutz Goliath. And it's difficult because God is dealing with every single person individually. Do you want to do it? Do you want to do it? Do you want to do it? He's not taking a million people together and taking them to Eretz Yisrael. He's doing this person by person. Ish mim kaimai. To make sure we understand this Rashi, so the Kotzker explains to us what Rashi's saying. First, the Kotzker quotes the Rashi, and then he said as follows. Obviously, he said in those days in Yiddish, to merit Kibbutz Goliath, God checks each person individually. Are you a person that merits me letting you back to Eretz Yisrael? Are you roy to be part of Kibbutz Goliath? This has nothing to do with being part of a larger group. This is a din of every person separately. And it's a din just like Rosh Hashanah. The Mishnah in Rosh Hashanah, Daf Tes Zayin says, Rosh Hashanah kol boy olam oivim lefonav kivnei marayim. On Rosh Hashanah, God judges the world like kivnei marayim, like sheep. When you want to, we learned about this in Masech Shkolim for Maisa Behema. People would have large corrals, Jews would have large corrals with animals, let's say sheep, and they would have a small door. and they would open the small door. The size of the door was just barely wide enough for the width of the body of one sheep. And so two sheep couldn't come through the door at one time. So only one sheep came through the door, and they branded the sheep one at a time. They couldn't sneak two at a time. And the Mishnah says, Kol boy olam olam. We pass by God one at a time, and God takes a very close look at us individually. Kibbutz Goliath is Yom Gadol. It's a great day, but it's also Bakushi. It's also difficult, Kaviyachol. The Rashi says it's as if God has to take every single person and talk to him and say, do you want to come? Kol echad min kaima. Do you want to or do you want? You don't want to, I'm moving on to the next person. Is it a yes or a no? It's called echad ve'echad. And this itself requires that Hashem is breichen kol echad levade im hu roi b'fnei atzmo. Are you roi? Are you not roi? So we learned last week in the Rav Kook about Vidui Maisa. We said that Rav Kook taught us a very important lesson. Vidui Maisa, we always think about Vidui about, I'm sorry, I did something terrible. Vidui Maisa, at the end of the 3-year process, we learned a person says, God, I want to say Vidui, I did so many good things. I gave money to orphans and widows and the Levium, and I supported good things. Chazal call that Vidui. And Rav Kook said, because a person has to be mu'uzan, you have to balance yourself. You can't just always beat yourself up and beat your chest with al-chetz. A person has to be able to say, as Rav Gil Devere called the name of last week's Parsha as Rav Kook, sometimes you have to pat yourself on the back and say, Shkoyach, you did an unbelievable thing. And this is very important in a person's avodas Hashem. It gives a person simcha. Last week's Parsha we read, 2 weeks ago, we read last week's Parsha, we read, Tachas Hashem Hashem lekecha b'simcha v'tov leva. The Yisurim in the Torah came because you served Hashem, but you didn't do it with a simcha. Person has to appreciate all the things that he's done in his avodas Hashem also. You can't become a narcissist, and you can't become a Baal Gaiva, Rav Kook says. But there comes a point in time, sometimes you have to be able to look in the mirror and say, Rebbeinu Shalom, I said Vidui al Chet, and now I want to say Vidui Kasich Kol Asher Tzivisani. So for those of us, those of us who made Aliyah, and those of us who are here, we have a tremendous schus. We don't know where that schus came from. It could be our schus. It could be the schus of us. It could be schus of children. We don't know what the schusim are. But that parsha, that the Rebbeinu Shalom has to literally, it's a tough thing to bring Jews back to Eretz Yisrael. It's kushi. And the Rebbeinu Shalom has to do this individually. Do you want to come or not come? You don't want to, gesund to hate. We'll move on to the next person. We went through this process. And Baruch Hashem, we're here. We're part of this great miracle called Kibbutz Goliath. I always notice, I say this to whoever's in the car with me, if I'm driving to or from Tel Aviv, there's nowhere else in the world where there's an intersection called Kibbutz Goliath. When you get close to Tel Aviv, there's a big sign. It says Kibbutz Goliath. There's no sign Kibbutz Goliath in Williamsburg. There's no sign Kibbutz Goliath in Lakewood. There's no sign Kibbutz Goliath in Muncie. They name their streets and they can't say Kibbutz Goliath. What kind of Kibbutz Goliath is there in Muncie and Lakewood? But here in Tel Aviv, there's an intersection called Kibbutz Goliath. This is the miracle that we live. And we were Zoicha when, however this happened to us, HaKadosh Baruch Hu may have said to an elder Zayda, HaKadosh Baruch Hu may have said to a Zayda, HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees Nechesh ben children, HaKadosh Baruch Hu saw us, whatever he saw, Baruch Shalom said, do you want to go? Kol echad ve'echad, and we, Baruch Hashem, ended up here. So that's a Rashi in Pashas Netzavim. Hastoras Panim and Ha'oras Panim is the second handout you have, again, courtesy of Rabbi Dr. DePost, and that comes from Pashas Vayelech. And it's the same idea. Perek Lamed Aleph, Pasuk Yud Ches. The Rebbeinu Shalom says, and on that day, I will grow angry, Loyalenu, with the Jewish people. We know what angry means. God doesn't get angry, doesn't get sad. We learned about this. The Pasuk says, V'histarti panai mehem, astoras panim, v'hoyele echo, and they will be consumed by their enemies. Umitza'u rois, rabbis, v'tzarais, many tzarais will befall them. V'omar b'yomahu, and on that day, when the Jews suffer so much, they will say, Haloi al ki ein elaka b'kirbi mitzuni roisayla. They will say, you know why all this has befallen me? It's because God is not with me. Sounds like vidui. All of these things have happened to me because I've not been close to God. God has not been close to me. We don't have that relationship anymore. And I recognize that being disconnected from God is what has brought this upon me. Sounds like the Jews are doing tshuva. Next pasuk. V'anochi haster astar ponai b'yomahu al kol hara she'asa kifana el Elohim acherim. And on that day, when the Jews say that I recognize my problems and my troubles are the result of disconnect from God, God will say, you know what? I'm going to even further hide myself. The first pasuk we read says v'histarti, once, hastara. And now the pasuk says, after the Jews say, God and I are on disconnect, and that's why things have been falling me, the Torah says, a double hastara. V'anochi haster aster panai b'yomahu. Parenthetically, the Gemara says in Chulin, as we mentioned, when the Gemara says, where is the remes to Esther in the Torah? The Gemara says the remes to Esther is from this pasuk, haster aster, sounds like Esther. So the Ramban that you have says as following. ולקח אומר כי על כל הרוע הגדול שעשו לפתח בעבודה זרה יסתר אוהד פנים מהם לא כמסתר פנים הראשון שיסתר פני רחמיו ומצום רויס רביס וצורך רק שיהיו בהסתר בני הגאולה ויעמדו בהבטחת ואף גם ביוסם בארץ אביהם למעשיו ולגעתם לחלויסם עד שיוסיף על החתורת הנזכרת וידעו גם התשובה שלהם. This is a Hastorah Sheba Hastorah. What does a Hastorah Sheba Hastorah mean? Well, we said Hastorah means darkness. I'm confused. The Soreg is closed. The Tris is closed. I don't know what's going on. This is called Hastoras Pnei HaGeula. Jews have already come back to Eretz Yisrael. And they're doing tshuva. And they're working on tshuva, as we saw in Pashas Netzavim. And we need the Rebbeinu Shalom's help to finish off the tshuva. And in this process, there's a Hastoras Pnei Geula. God is hiding from us the Geula. It seems that we can't make sense out of this. There's a kibbutz golius. We established Torah. We've done so much here, b'mesirus nefesh, in Eretz Yisrael. Where is the Geula? What? And the question keeps on being asked. What more does the Jewish people have to show that to their dedication and loyalty to their Rebbeinu Shalom? After the Holocaust, from the ash of the Holocaust, Medina Yisrael was built, Torah was rebuilt, Gemilas Chasadim, Avodah, so much has been rebuilt here through blood, sweat, and tears. And where's Mashiach? Where is he? What more does the Rebbeinu Shalom already want from us? What does he want from me? This is called Hastoras Pnei HaGeula. It's not that there's a Hastoras Panim. You can't even figure out why there is a Hastoras Panim. In the first set of Hastoras Panim, people thought about it, and they said, oh, I figured this out. The reason why I've gone through everything I'm going through is because I'm on disconnect with God. I figured it out. And now that I figured it out, I'm doing tshuva. And now that I'm doing tshuva, and I'm doing it so loyally and in such a dedicated way, where's the geula? I can't figure this out. I can't figure out why I can't figure it out anymore. Even the geula is covered. So in the first round of Hastara, I had an answer. This is a double Hastara. I'm now in a state where I can no longer figure out. In stage one, I figured out something. I'm on disconnect with God. Now I'm reconnecting to God, and I still can't figure out what's happening. That's called Hastoras Pnei Hagula, that the Ramban says was prophesied already. The Rebbeinu Shalom told us through Moshe Rabbeinu in the Torah, we're going to go through such a phase after Kibbutz Goliath. We're going to go through such a phase of Hastoras Pnei Hagula, where it simply appears that we're doing everything we should be doing. We're doing everything we can. Where's the Geula? And this was already told to us that we're going to go through such a phase. And in the end, the Torah says, we're going to come back to Eretz Yisrael. The Mashiach Tzidkenu will come. But we should understand, again, as we learn the Das Tavunos, there's no chaos here. Everything's being running away. If people learn Chumash, Rashi, Ramban, they learn Nevi'im and Ksuvim, they see that there's nothing shocking happening here. It's shocking to us because as human beings, we would expect things to happen in another way. But if you're familiar and you learn the Nevuos, and you learn it with the Mefarshim, and you understand what Chazal is saying, you understand that this was already told to us. You can expect this. The end of Masechta Soita, the Mishnah Gemara tells us, this is what you will see in the times of Mashiach. And we get a whole list of Ikvasa the Mashiach, of what you can expect. And these things are jumping off the page in front of us today. So it is not chaos. It's the Rebbeinu Shalom told us these things were happening. And they are happening. We just have to hold on tight in our emunah. That the same way as Rabbi Akiva looked over the Harabayas and saw Shu'olim Hilchuvo, the same way that the Chazal and the Nevi'im, etc., told us certain things will happen that are very difficult that we're living through, the same way that their words came absolutely true and are coming true in a way that we don't understand, and things that are happening that we don't particularly like or desire. The words of the Nevi'im that talk about the Geula Shalema and the wonderful things that will happen with Bias Mashiach, they're going to come equally true. It's not just one-sided truth. It's complete truth is going to happen. The Sfas Emes says in Shemais, he said, the Rebbeinu Shalom said to Avraham Avinu at the Bris Bein Absorim, your children are going to be oppressed in a land not theirs for 400 years. And then the Rebbeinu Shalom says, V'gam es hagoy asher yavoidun don anochi. The nation that will enslave your children, I will judge. It says, don anochi. One word, done. The people, the nation that enslaves your descendants, Avram, I will judge. What grew out of that one word, judge? What grew out of that one word, judge? Came 10 Makkahs, came Kriyas Yamsuf, and we learned the Haggadah, there were 250 Makkahs on the Yamsuf. So Sfas Emes says, God said one word. Those that will oppress your children, done. And done came 10 Makkahs and Kriyas Yamsuf. Can you imagine what's coming to the oppressors of the Jewish people when you count thousands of words in the Nevi'im about what is going to come to those who oppress the Jewish people? If one word is 10 Makkahs and Kriyas Yamsuf, can you imagine what hundreds and thousands of words are when Mashiach comes in Herav Yameinu Amen. Everybody have a wonderful day. Have a good Shabbos. Take care of yourselves. Those you need Yeshua should have Yeshuas. Those you need Nechamas should have Nechamas. Those you need Refuah should have Refuahs. Those you need Barachas should have Barachas. Yeshuas, Barachas, Nechamas, and Refuahs only come from the Rebbeinu Shalom. Happen any other way. He's the Echad Yachid U'Miyuchad. When we understand this and we live this, we do a Gilui Hayichud for ourselves, which brings about our own self-perfection, and through our own self-perfection, we help the perfection of the perfectly imperfect world around us. And then the Mashiach can come mamish today and finish up the job of Gilui Hayichud and build the Beis Hamikdash where we can bring karbonis and we can give matzos a shekel or even a full shekel again. Everybody have a wonderful Shabbos, wonderful